Hello, beautiful people. It's good to see you all here today. I will be talking on unlocking corporate cash flow, the 5 steps to attracting corporate sponsors who believe in your cause. A couple of months ago, I joined the speakers networking meeting where we are given the opportunity to meet other speakers for this very conference. And I met the lovely Virginia. She's one of the executive directors here in Glasgow doing awesome work. And she shared a very shocking statistic with me. She said, I think less than 5% of non charities here in Scotland make over 500K. Now, that was shocking. And because it was shocking, I took it upon myself to research on it. And I found that why it wasn't really 5, it was 7%. But yet that's still shocking considering the amount of money that's needed to create social change in any community. But there's hope. And I think the hope we can actually tap into corporate funding if we want to bridge the gap, not just for big nonprofits. Say we want to bridge the gap to have at least 10 to 15% of nonprofits or charities in Scotland earning above 500K. And not just these big charities, but also the small charities, how they can also improve and increase, the money they earn, the money they can bring in annually. Corporate funding is right a key way out. Why is that so? It's so because corporate funding is quite reliable. It is based on the value you can provide. It is a value exchange strategy. And if you can be able to negotiate based on that value, you are good at putting yourself out there, getting into those meetings, those conversations, and then you're able to negotiate based on that value. You can bring in corporate cash flow, you can bring in money as soon as possible. So there's really no restriction to it, also based on the fact that you can actually use this funding for every aspect of your work, except in situations where your corporate funders are strictly saying, no, we want this money on a particular program, or you're asking money for a particular program. So, but the key is corporate funding is reliable, it is straightforward, the opportunity is available if you know how to go about, bringing in corporate funding. But again, there's a challenge, there are limitations. And if you've been following the trend over the past decade, you've noticed the drop or the decrease in corporate funding over the years, right? Since 2014 to 2024, there's been a 49% increase in profits from corporations, but there's been a 13% decrease in giving since that same time frame. That's to tell you that something is wrong. If corporate funding can be a very, structured and great opportunity for you to raise money, yet it is not happening, there are some key factors that are wrong. And some of the key factors that are wrong is the fact that there are limited staff and resources to go about this funding. I'll tell you a story. About sometime in July, I was a part of a training for corporate funding the management level. Being one who came into the UK sometime last year, I wanted to integrate into the corporate community. And I met different corporate partnership directors, different executive directors of charities across the UK in that training. The training was organized by the Chartered Institute of Fundraising. And one of the recurring themes I kept noticing was the fact that majority of these people who have the mandate, who have the responsibility to bring in corporate funding are overworked, they are overwhelmed, And sometimes they're even, confused as to how to go about even bringing in the funding. They don't even understand the process. There's inadequate relationship building. Sometimes it's all about just going after the funding, and with your staff and your resources, you've been overwhelmed. It's definitely sure you may not be able to bring in the necessary funding you need for your organization. So, of course, what is the way out? The way out is what we call the resource development strategy. The resource development strategy is a complete framework that can help you bring in funding consistently into your organization, right? By going through the right process, having the right team in place, ensuring strategic partnership throughout the whole process, putting the necessary people in place, ensuring the trustees are all part of the process. And it may sound like a lot, but I will walk you through what that would look like. But before I go on, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Akpesu Rooney. I am the Vice President of Client Services for Nonprofit Solutions Matter LLC. We work with charities across the US to build board capacity and raise money. Some of the strategies I'm going to be unveiling to you today on how to unlock corporate cash flow is based on the strategies we've been using with Solutions Matter, where we've been able to raise over $500 million over the past 30 years working with nonprofit. But before I go further, I want to hear from you. What is your experience with corporate funding? Have you achieved any success? How were you able to bring in success? Did you experience any challenges? What was the challenges? Were you able to raise money? This is an interactive session, and I really want to hear from you before I begin to go deep into the strategies that can help you unlock corporate cash flow for your organization. Wow, good. Thank you so much for those awesome feedback. As you can see, corporate cash flow is possible. You can be able to raise money if you put in the right strategies and process. Now, the 5 steps to help you unlock corporate cash flow based on the resource development strategy we talked about earlier is: first, planning for success; 2, infrastructure development and team building; 3, onboarding and capacity building; 4, effective and efficient execution; 5, managing corporate relationships. Now, before we begin to go into the steps, I want you to understand some key factors about corporate funding. Corporate funding is a value exchange strategy. It is unlike any other kind of strategy. You have to be able to provide value for the funding you are asking in return. Now, you may be able to find corporations and businesses who are not really interested in your value because they have everything figured out. But at the core of it, businesses have goals and missions they are looking to reach. Every year, they are well outlined: increasing the market share, increasing our customer base, growing our profit base. And if you're not discussing anything along this language, you are most likely not going to get their interest. So the key to corporate funding is what we call providing value in exchange for the funding you are asking for. So like I said earlier, corporate cash flow is a very is a very standard and a good way to bring in money. So it can be the lifeblood of the organization if you know how to execute and ensure a consistent follow-up of execution when going towards corporate funding. Now, there are different forms of corporate cash flow, right? It could be the corporate social responsibility, it could be corporate partnership, it could be corporate sponsorship, it could just be corporate giving. There are different names for it, depending on really the circumstances around your relationship with the corporation you're really engaging with. But like I said, at the core of it, it is really providing values back to these organizations so that they can be able to, fund your mission, so that they can be able to fund your organization. So to win corporate cash flow, like I said, you must follow the 5 steps I listed earlier. And the very first of the 5 steps is what we call planning for success. So before diving into corporate sponsorship, it is crucial to define a clear plan. Effective planning ensures that you are clear on your fundraising goals, the companies you want to target, the value you offer. With the right strategy, you can maximize your chances of securing corporate cash flow that will drive the organization's mission forward. So, like I said, the very first step is planning for success. Without a good plan, you're most likely not going to achieve any, good results. Because when planning, you're able to define, this is how much we're looking to raise. These are the kind of materials or support we're looking to bring in. These are the kind of companies we want to reach out to. These are the kind of benefits we're going to provide back to these companies in return, right? This is exactly how we're going to be reaching out to these companies. These are the people we need to be able to execute our strategy, right? These are the resources, the tools, the infrastructures we're going to need to execute on our strategy. And then, of course, this is what it's going to cost us to execute this strategy. You need to be able to define every part of this execution if you want to be able to go into execution and then be successful. So planning for success is a very important part of the process, because when you plan, you have to be able to bring everybody within the organization together, everybody who's interested in fundraising, everybody who's mandated to be able to, build the organization in a way, including program directors, marketing directors, fundraising directors, officers, trustees. You need to be able to bring everybody together to do that planning, so that everybody can share their ideas, everybody can criticize the process, thereby giving an ownership of the process to everyone involved. This is very important, because in community development, we say people who plan together execute together. So planning for success is really critical, and then involving everyone in the process is also very critical if you want to be able to achieve success when executing. So like I said, you need to be able to determine what your corporate funding goal is, what kind of funding and support and resources you're looking to bring in, the kind of brands you're looking to reach out to, the benefits you can provide this brand in return, the people you need to execute your strategy, how you intend to reach out to these corporate funders, right? The tools and resources you need throughout the process, the team you need to execute, what it will cost you as regards budget, and then an action plan saying this is how we're going to execute at the end of the day. So during the end of your planning process, of course, you must be able to determine what tools and infrastructures you need for the process. So this leads us to the second step, where we talk about the infrastructures and the team you need. Now, before going about your execution, it is important to create the infrastructures and tools you need to be able to execute the process. You don't want to miss out on that, because imagine you being out there trying to execute and you don't even have the tools and resources you need. It's most likely going to be frustrating. Also, imagine your trustees out there trying to help you execute, trying to initiate communication, and you don't even have the messaging, you don't even have the content. You find out that they begin to, avoid that responsibility and may not commit to the process. So it's important you have these tools you need created already and available for the people who need them, so that when they go out there, they can be able to execute and create the expectation that you've, put ahead of them. So what are some of the tools and infrastructures you need to be able to execute? You need the project management tools. This could be Asana, this could be Trello. This is to help you both manage your team that's going to be executing and also manage the communication and deadline and deliverables between you and your corporate funders and partners. Another tool, infrastructure you might need is a fundraising database or CRM. This could be the Salesforces, this could be the Bloomerang. This is really to help you manage, your communication, know where you are at every point of your communication with your prospects. Another key tool you could have is the financial management systems. This could be the QuickBooks. These are really to help you collect donations, manage, cash flow across your corporate funding space, right? A corporate funders directory. This is very much like your own directory of funders. You could have a list of say 20, 50 corporations that these are high level targets that you build a plan of care around and really communicate with them on a very specialized level. This is different from the you just going on out there to buy emails or just have a list of these companies. This is really a research list that aligns with the organization. Now, there's also the corporate funding database again. This is really those databases that are out there, those ESG databases, those corporate funding databases, right, that you can be able to sign up to and then get real-time information as regards corporate funding across your space. Communication tools and materials are really your content. From materials is really around your content, your flyers, your videos, whatever you're putting out there as marketing and communication tools to initiate communication, to also manage your communication. This is where communication materials come in. Communication tools could be Calendly, Zoom, Google Meet, whatever you're using to engage and manage your communication with both your team and your corporate funders. Contract and agreement templates, also very important, because you need to have these ready. It's not when you have an agreement with the sponsor and then you're saying, let's go create a contract. You should already have a template. You just have to tweak, make it available at the time so that you can have the signature and that's approval before you can then reach out for the funding. So proposal and case for support. This is very popular. Everybody knows what a proposal is. You have to develop a proposal saying this is what we're asking for, this is what we could give, and this is why you should really fund our organization. So like I said, you need both tools and people to be able to execute. So you also need to be able to create your corporate funding team. Now, your corporate funding team is going to be made up of your corporate funding committee and your outreach team. Now, how do you build your corporate funding committee? During your initial planning session, at the end of the plan where you've agreed on how you want to reach out, what you're going to be providing, you should be able to inaugurate a corporate funding committee involving where board members can then, or trustees can step forward to say, I want to be a part of the committee. I want to be able to support the endeavor. Now, the corporate funding committee is the committee charged with negotiating deals as regards corporate funding for the organization. So this committee could be made up of trustees, it could be made up of executive management team, it could also be made up of stakeholders, gatekeepers within the community you serve, and also people within the community you serve. This is important so that you can have a well reflection of the community when you meet with these corporate funders, as you go about your corporate funding outreach. Now, the outreach team is really those who initiate the communication, those who follow up with the communication. So you want to also be able to build this team. This could be made up of junior level staff, volunteers, just contractors, people who can be able to help you execute, set up meetings, and nurture these communications till you are able to ask for funding. Now, once you've built your team, you've created your resources, the next step is to onboard your team and capacity building for those who need training to be able to execute. So onboarding is really where you get to help them align. You get to align the team, you get to align so that they know these are the tools available for us to execute. This is exactly how we want to execute. This is how I fit into the overall big picture. It is very important the team members who are going to be executing know this before they execute. So it's very important to do an onboarding session and, of course, make sure they are well motivated during that session and eager to execute before you all start to execute. For capacity building, we've seen that some members of within your organization may not know how to execute this strategy. Some may know, but may really not have the professionalism to execute. So you need to be able to train your team. You need to be able to train your committee so that they can be able to execute the strategy flawlessly. For your outreach team, you need to be able to train them so that they know how to initiate those communication, initiate those relationships, nurture the relationship, and move that relationship up through the committees who can then, make the ask. For the committee making the ask, they need to know the art of making the ask. They need to know how to make the ask, how to ask, you know, an executive of a brand for sponsorship. Because if you look at it, so many founders or so many trustees think it's just all about going into that meeting and then talking to these executives about the transformation, and then they think that's a justification for just making the ask. But like I said, there's a reason why these people operate. They operate to increase profits, they operate to increase market share, they operate to increase their customer base. So if you are able to, get this group of people to be able to think in your direction based on that, say for example, they are able to connect the fact that their marketing goal can be achieved by sponsoring your brand. Let me give you an example. So if a non-profit is a charity that's here in Glasgow, serving, say, during that process of serving across the year, they get to reach 100,000 people across Glasgow. And then there's a brand out there who's also seeking to reach 100,000 people across Glasgow. By going into that meeting and then making the ask, like asking proper questions that help you align the objective. For example, what are your marketing goals for the year? You're looking to reach 100,000. Where we also have 100,000 audience over the past, every year. I know we're going to reach even twice that number this year. We just want you to sponsor us. With asking questions, you can be able to align the areas of connection before you make the ask. So it is important to train your people, make sure they have the necessary skills, expertise, and knowledge to ensure success. And then once you've been able to onboard and build their capacity, the next is really where you go into efficient and effective execution. Now, efficient and effective execution is really all about how you get to execute, because we've seen that you may get everything right from the beginning, but you may still get it wrong with your execution and then suffer the regrets. So how do you get the execution right? First, from the very outreach. Now, for your people, you need to be able to set up a schedule of action. Your team needs to be able to provide a schedule of action to say, this is how we intend to execute, right? This is for the outreach team. This is how we're going to be executing on a daily basis. For the committee, this is how we're going to be going. These are the days we're going to be available for going into those meetings. Now, after setting up those schedules, there has to be an accountability process in place to ensure that these people keep to the schedule that have been laid forth, because it's a process within the organization that has to keep running to bring in the result that's desired. Now, once you've been able to settle that schedule and also that accountability process, then how do you execute? Now, one of the common execution we've seen is people just get emails of these companies and then just start sending out emails. While that is also good in its way, because I believe all marketing is good marketing, I would say doing that, especially when you're just making an appeal through those emails, may not create any result. I think a lot of you already know that if you've done that in the past, because the people behind those emails are customer representatives who are set up to put away those kind of emails. But if you're sending direct emails to say, connect me to the partnership director, connect me to the CSRO director, connect me to the CEO, you're most likely going to get a more effective response. Now, aside the email outreach, there's also what we call the direct executive outreach. I think this is my favorite of all the strategies, because really the people who would sponsor or the people who would approve the funding within the organizations are people, not even the brand itself. So what we do is, instead of targeting the brand, you target the executives within the brand who's capable of making the funding decisions that we seek. So for example, the CEO, the partnership director, the business manager, the corporate social responsibility director, the vice president, board chairman, these are people who can influence the decision we're looking to make. So what we do is we go on Google, search them out, take their names, go on LinkedIn, send them emails, connect to them on LinkedIn, and begin to build that relationship. Based on shared value, you're most likely going to get a positive response if you go that route. It's just like people who are applying for job, everybody's doing a normal route, and then you have your backdoor entrance. That's really how it feels when you're able to use that strategy. So aside reaching out to these executives, you can set up executives through LinkedIn. You can set up direct office visitations where you go into their offices to discuss with them, because that's really what they are there for. Aside that, there are other ways of execution. You can use social media, just put out content talking about sponsorship. You can set up webinars, invite corporate executives to join those webinars where you talk about the value you can provide corporations back, and then you can have a plan of care for specific, like I said, you have 20 to 100 list of companies that are well targeted, and then you have a plan of care that ensures that you are really communicating and building a relationship with these companies before you make the ask. So like I said, the acts of making the ask, you need to be able to learn when you get to that point where you're discussing with these executives. Knowing how to make the ask is very important, because they may get the execution right from the very beginning, help you set up the meeting, the prospect is already fired up, and then you all just go in and just mess that up because you don't know how to make the ask. So you have to learn how to make the ask so that you can increase your chances for success. So now, at the end of the day, you made the ask, you've won the deal. What next? Well, before I'll say you won the deal, before I say what next, normally for you to win a deal with a corporate funder, we've seen that you need to take an average of 6 to 10 touches with these brands. So it means majority of the time, the first meeting may not give you a yes. So you need to be able to set up a follow-up system to ensure that you don't lose your prospect who's already grown interest. So a follow-up system could be you assigning that prospect to one person within that meeting to keep following up with that prospect, to keep nurturing that relationship until that relationship is turned into a funding relationship. You could also, get a trustee to handle that relationship. That is the job for the trustees. They could steward that relationship until you could get a funding out of that relationship. So now that's for the follow-up. Now you got the funding. What do? Assign an account manager to manage that relationship. You need somebody who's going to be reporting back as regards that relationship, tracking the progress, tracking the milestone, and making sure everything that's promised to the partner is being delivered. If you leave that open without assigning somebody to it, you're most likely going to not handle that relationship perfectly. Project management tools like Asana and Trello can help you manage communication between you and these brands, and also help you keep the timeline, identify milestone, and also, so there's also the monitoring and the reporting aspect of it, where you get to report and monitor, the project so that everything goes according to plan. And of course, you can transform these corporate funders into advocates for your organization, because a lot of these businesses, they are part of a network of other businesses who can talk to other businesses about your organization and the benefits they are getting, and then begin to get you more funding. So you must know how to manage a relationship with a corporate funder. Getting that relationship is just the beginning. Managing the relationship is really where you get to see more results. Now, to recap, the 5 steps to unlock corporate funding. If you begin to take these 5 steps from today, like from step 1 to step 2 to step 3, you can begin to achieve success. 1, plan for success. Bring everybody in to come plan. At the end of that plan, inaugurate a fundraising committee. After inaugurating the fundraising committee, you all work together to develop the infrastructures, the proposals, the CRM, the tools you need for your outreach. And then, of course, build the team that's going to execute the outreach. This could include you bringing in volunteers, stakeholders, officers, executive management team into these committees to be able to support the outreach while the committee make the ask. When you bring in these teams, you need to be able to onboard them so that they know the tools available to them. They know what they have to do. And then, of course, those who need capacity building, you need to be able to train them so that they can be able to execute efficiently. And then once you have your team, you go on to all execute by creating a schedule, creating accountability systems around those schedules, having everybody, continue to execute, meet to review and keep improving And that's how you create a system that's going to be bringing in money consistently for your organization. And then when you have a follow-up, assign somebody to do the follow-up. And when you have a partner, you need to be also assign somebody to ensure to manage that relationship, keep to time frame. You can use project management tools to also manage your relationships. Um, of course, monitor your the results you've promised to the prospect. Transform your prospects into an advocate who can begin to bring in other corporate funders for you. This is really the 5 steps for you to unlock corporate cash flow for your organization, for you to find brands that can really commit to supporting you towards actualizing your mission. So this is the very end. I want to hear from you. Please ask me any question. What questions do you have? How can you transform this strategy for your organization? How can you begin to implement it? Well, on the screen, you can see our QR code. Simply take a picture of it. You can scan that, and you can set a free consultation call with me. I'll help you look into your organization, look into your process, and then, of course, see how we can develop that so that you can begin bringing in corporate funding for your organization. You also have my mobile number on the screen. Give me a call, text me. I'll be happy to help you moving forward. Until I see you all again, feel free to meet me up after the event. Let's connect and have a good time. Bye-bye.